Today we're going to pick up where we left off. So please open your Azure notebook and go to Module 2, 2.1. Simple functions. Okay, today we're going to cover section 2.1, creating simple functions. Function is a piece of code that you can write and use over and over again by calling it. You can return a value from those functions, and you can send multiple parameters or arguments to those functions. Sequencing in Python talks about where you call the functions can reside elsewhere in the program, and then you call them from the main section. So today you should be able to create a function with parameters, create one with a return value, have your knowledge of sequencing. Please watch the 2-minute video on functions to give you more insight. There are built-in functions such as the print command. The print command can take no arguments, which will produce a blank line, or anything that's inside the parentheses will be output. If they're separated by commas, it'll output multiple arguments. So in this case, we have the built-in function print. It has 2 parameters, hello world, separated by a comma. I'm sending string arguments to print. So those should end up on the same line because it's one print statement with 2 arguments. And there should be spacing between the exclamation point and the I. And we do. We get a space, argument 1, hello world, argument 2, I'm sending the print arguments to print. In this case, we're going to assign a couple variables and then output those mixed in with strings, literal strings. So we're going to define a variable called student age equals 17, a variable called student name equals Horatio Yamaguchi, student name, comma, the literal string will be in class 4, comma, the variable student age, comma, year-old student. So it should say Horatio Yamaguchi will be in class for 17-year-old students. And that's what we get as our output. In this case, we're going to send one parameter to the print command called line 1. We're going to create a new print command with line 2. We're going to create a print command without any parameters, which should produce a blank line, and then we should get line 4. We hit Control Enter, line 1, line 2, blank line, line 4. Passing arguments. So in the previous example, we passed the literal string line 1 to the print command. So our task is to take the one that was the example and add more arguments so that we have a total of 8 or more. So we're just going to keep it simple. We're going to just send out a couple of strings. This is arg. We've already got 4. Student name will be in class 4, student age, and year-old students. So we had 4 already, so this will be argument 5, comma, argument 6. Make sure you close the quote. Outside of the quote, we do another comma, open quote, arg 7, outside the quote, and then arg 8. Control Enter on that. We had the 4 to begin with, and then the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th argument. Okay, please watch the video on creating simple functions. Functions must be defined with the word def. You must indent all lines that go with the function. You define parameters inside the function call, anything in the parentheses, and can have a return value. So in this case, we have a function called sum function. Function names you get to define, just like variables. They must start with a letter, and then they can have letters or numbers or underscores. They must have a parenthesis. Either if there's no arguments being sent, you still have to have them. It's just nothing in them. And then you have to have a colon to terminate the definition. And then all lines go after that. So in this case, we're defining hello, say hi, has no arguments, and we terminate it with the colon. All lines that belong to this function are indented. So print hello there and print goodbye. In this case, we define 3, no parameters or arguments, colon, and then it's going to print the integer 33. Now, that defines them, but to actually use them, you must call them. So here's their definition we just went over. And this is where we actually call them. So these get skipped as the program is evaluated, or doesn't get skipped, they get loaded into memory for use. And then we call them by using the function name and parentheses and any arguments that go in there. So it should call say hi, which will print hello there and goodbye on 2 different lines. It'll print a blank line, so it pops after it completes a function, it comes back to the line right after the one that called it. So it's going to do a print, and then it'll call the new function, which will cause it to jump up to line 10 and run the function, which will print 33. So we should get hello there, goodbye, a blank line, and 33. Okay, in this case, we're going to define a function called yellit. So yellit, when you're angry on the computer, you type in uppercase. So we're going to create a function called yellit that basically outputs a phrase in uppercase. So we need the word death, yell underscore it, open and close parenthesis, and a colon. I'm going to define a variable called phrase. I am angry. Exclamation point. And we're going to uppercase that using the upper function. And then we're going to print that phrase. So that defines it. Hit enter a couple times, go back to column 0, which ends the function, and then we're going to call it. I'm not passing any parameters because the phrase we're going to yell is already in there, but we do need the open and close parentheses. What this will do is it will say, oh, that's a function, I need to go find it. It'll look through the program, find it at line 2, run the program, and then return to line 8. So let's go ahead and control enter to run that, and we get I am angry in uppercase. So in this, we talk about the print command and the type command are built-in functions. Print can take multiple arguments or parameters. Type can only take one. We used type before to define if it's a string or an integer or so on. Okay, so in this case, type hello, that would return string.
When you create a function, you can define an argument or parameter. In this case, we have phrase, which will be passed and printed. If you define a parameter but don't pass a value, you can give it a default value by assigning it with an equal sign and a value. In this case, phrase will be equal to hi.
So in this example, we've defined yell this. It takes one parameter called phrase. We come down here and we output that phrase in uppercase followed by an exclamation point. In this case, now we're going to yell this. It is time to save the notebook. And we're going to pass that string as a parameter. And it should uppercase that, which it does. Okay. So in this case, we have a parameter called phrase and a default value of hi if no parameter is sent. So in the first line, 5, We call it with no parameter, so it will define or assign hi to phrase. And the second one, we pass it the string by, so it doesn't use hi, it replaces that with by. So we should get hi by as our output. Now we're going to define our own yell it, but this time we're going to get our input from the user so that we can output multiple things. So we need to do a def. I'm going to call yell underscore this, and we're going to take a parameter called words underscore to underscore yell. We're going to print words to yell dot upper plus an exclamation point. Get input from the user. So this time we're going to create a variable called get phrase to input, and we're going to prompt our user enter words to yell. Then we're going to call that yell this, sending it get underscore phrase. The way that works is when you send a parameter, it replaces them in order with the ones defined. So get phrase, words to yell becomes get phrase. Good run. Oh, we forgot when we defined it, we forgot our colon. Let's run that again. Words to yell, I am angry. It's all in uppercase. Complete module 2.1 and share it with me.